Dedicated Linux users. Genuine question. What appeals you to Linux? For me, the very fact that I would have to ask myself, will it work with new titles, drivers, restore disparities, etc. keep me off. Other than screw Microsoft, what keeps you dedicated to it? And I'm really only interested in responses from dedicated Linux users. That means no Windows on any of your systems. Now, Jay, I have a confession to make. I do have a desktop that has a Windows partition, but at this point of time my appendix is a bit more useful, so why not? Okay. Now this is true that you can exclusively use Linux, but that depends on your use case. If you're thinking that you cannot use Linux exclusively all the time for every use case, that's the same thing with Windows as well. You cannot use Windows in every single use case. Hence, Microsoft introduced WSL. It's a Linux VM that runs in your Windows machine, and it's a very high performance VM. And it's great as far as I've heard and I used in my university computers. For me it's okay, it's not as good as the bare metal Linux, but still, not bad. So that was a little bit of part that I want to call out on your skewed perspective when it comes down to the operating systems. Now, let's get to the real part. For me, it's not about screw Microsoft. I sort of have a love-hate relationship when it comes down to Microsoft because there are certain things that I love from Microsoft. First of all, it's C#. It's one of my favorite languages because you write like a C++ code, but the implementation is more like Java, but it's faster than Java and it's less draconian. It also has a very solid Linux port, and it got me into games development through Unity. A VSCode is another product that I love from Microsoft. In my opinion, that's the best Electron-based IDE. It has a great Vim emulation, not as good as the original Vim, but still it gets the job done. And compared to other Electron-based IDEs like Atom, it has also a very good terminal integration. So it scores another point for that because I am a command line dweller. And let's get to the best part, in my opinion, the best thing that Microsoft made, the MSX. That is the architecture that set out to be the architecture for home computers in Japan. And it also became the stepping stone for the OEM culture that we are used to today. But what I don't like from Microsoft are the NT-based Windows operating systems. Yes, nearly every Windows operating system in my opinion has been kind of a downer, okay? Windows XP was kind of a joke. Windows Vista was, what were they thinking? Windows 7 was actually good, and it was kind of a downfall from there. Windows 10 was bad, okay? I need to try it again, but I don't think that I would need Windows 10 anymore in my life. There would be certain edge cases where I would be needing it, but for the most part, I don't need it. And those edge cases, I do not know they will be coming or not in my daily life. So what is my biggest appeal to Linux? Frankly speaking, it all boils down to control. The level of control I get on Linux is unparalleled when it comes down to Mac or Windows. Now I will be highlighting two parts of this control. So let's get started with the repairability because I saved a lot of my time on this thing compared to Windows. Now, when I was using Windows as a kid, I have broken my OS several times. And when it comes down to Windows, you just insert the disk and you have to hope that it repairs itself. Otherwise, it'll be nuke and pave. On Linux, that's not the case. You pop in the live CD, you get into the live environment. Now you can diagnose the whole thing. You can see what component is not working for you, and how you can reconfigure it or reinstall it. And everything can be done right from the live CD. You don't even need to trust me, okay? Jay, don't take my word for this, but you need to try it out yourself. Install any kind of normie distro that you want to, like Ubuntu or Manjaro. Break something on it and repair it using the live environment. I'm sure you can do that. And I have done that several times. In fact, I have fixed my Windows partition through Ubuntu Live CD. There was a DLL file that was missing or it was corrupted and I had to replace that. I don't remember when that happened, but I remember my Windows 7 got corrupted and I had to replace the DLL file. I downloaded that DLL file from my Ubuntu partition and I replaced that in my Windows 7 partition, and boom, everything started to work the way it used to. And now moving on to customizability, and this one is from performance standpoint, not from the aesthetic standpoint. My main machine is Lenovo IdeaPad 330 and it runs on a highly modified version of Gen 2 Linux. Now I use it for gaming despite having the integrated graphics card. It's an APU, so I don't really expect a lot from it, but dang, I can run this thing at 720p 60 fps on medium high settings when it comes down to all my games, as long as they meet the minimum requirements, or better yet, the recommended requirements. So how am I able to make that happen? Think about it. If I qualify the minimum requirements, I would be able to play only at low settings, not at medium or high. It makes no sense at all. Now let me give you my secret sauce. For the graphical interface, I use a window manager instead of a desktop environment. Now a desktop environment has a lot of things like a window, which includes a window manager, but it takes up a lot of RAM, so I prune all of that out and I just have a window manager that is solely responsible for resizing and relocating my windows when I spawn it. So the window manager I am using is called DWM. It's more of an all-in-one kind of solution and it's only 6 kilobytes large. This thing is a window manager, it has a status bar, it also has a hotkey daemon built into it, and everything I can make that happen with a simple C code. And since I can program in C, it's a big plus for me. I can do that right from the source code. I don't have to go with config files. I can recompile the thing and it will work all the bloody time. It is very safe and it's very stable. I also prune out all the fancy effects. I don't have any compositor. This also offloads a lot of the load from GPU. No effects, not at all. That thing doesn't even exist on my computer. I also have an O3 level optimized kernel, and if I speak that in simple terms, it is a very aggressively optimized kernel, and this thing comes at the cost of stability, which ironically, for the most part, it is stable. Now for my Windows games, I have Glorious Eggroll Proton as well as one from Valve, and I also have a custom build of a Wine with this O3 level optimization, and that too tuned for my processor's microarchitecture, the first generation of Zen architecture. The only problem so far I have when it comes down to those games are those with anti-cheat elements. But I own none, so now you can see how I can exclusively game on Linux. I also tend to emulate older consoles, and I have to say, Linux is way better than Windows when it comes down to the emulation side of things. And that's mostly because of the low overhead, and it also allows me to go really far and wide when it comes down to my system. So there are my 2 cents, Jay-Z 2 cents, when it comes down to my appeal to Linux. I hope it widens your perspective when it comes down to using a different OS. Until then, I'm Apantrika from Pixel Trick, signing out.
And this fellow is going on screaming in the social media, if Nityananda proves his powers, I will give 1 crore. Who wants your 1 crore? Get lost. Why do you think I am sitting on the seat which is more valuable than 1 crore? Just to tell you, money doesn't matter. Money doesn't matter. Let Nityananda's disciples prove as per our standard.